Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another episode of Sci-Fi Factions Compared. Today, we are looking at rebellions and insurgencies with the goal of determining which is best. And best is certainly subjective here. I'll do the ranking based on their effectiveness, general structure, and I mean that in both leadership and military senses, as well as their history. What I mean is, as always, this is a holistic comparison. We're not simply looking at which faction is the most powerful. Now, I'd like to give a special thank you to Pyro Skies and of course the rest of the EckhartsLadder Discord who have together suggested this idea literally thousands of times. I told you guys I was getting to it. If you want to join the EckhartsLadder Discord, I've included a link in the description and of course in a pinned comment. I haven't been as active lately because of my new baby, but the Discord is super fun and it's a great community. So I went with 4 factions of my choosing: the Lambda Resistance from Half-Life, the Rebel Alliance from Star Wars, the Innies from Halo, and the Chaos Cults of Warhammer. Let's start with the most famous insurrectionists on today's list, the Rebel Alliance. The Alliance to restore the Republic stood against the mighty Galactic Empire, a state with seemingly unlimited resources, including various superweapons, 25,000 plus Star Destroyers, and a dedicated, powerful military, all of course led by an evil, future-seeing space wizard. The Alliance's greatest achievement was the degree to which they embraced their strengths and protected against their weaknesses. The Alliance could barely afford to fight even small-scale battles against the Empire, so they avoided, as much as possible, standard military engagements, instead focusing on hit-and-run tactics, secret missions, subterfuge, and generally the elements of a stateless military strategy. The Alliance almost never put their entire fleet at risk, and even when attacked or cornered by the Empire, somehow always managed to survive. Even major shipbuilding worlds, like Mon Cala, avoided the Empire's wrath and escaped the Galactic Civil War relatively unscathed, though of course military and political losses, like those at Hoth and Alderaan, did occur. The Alliance's greatest victory was of course the Battle of Endor, where they destroyed the second Death Star and a significant portion of the stationed Imperial fleet. Countless Imperial lives were lost, and the leadership vacuum caused by not only the death of Palpatine, but the loss of countless high-ranking officers who were disproportionately present at the battle made the Empire's eventual fall all but guaranteed. Some of the Alliance's successes were really faults of the Empire, namely the formation of a government so closely tied to a single individual, the lack of a chain of command after the Emperor, and the bloated nature of the Imperial military. But the Alliance deserves credit for finding, recognizing, and exploiting these weaknesses, and that's everything from large military and political decisions, including the use of strike fighters, to their smaller military tactics, like their decision to attack the Emperor at Endor. My main criticism of the Alliance is that they failed to instigate large-scale, galaxy-wide revolt. Remember, the Empire ruled for only 2 decades. It's not like the Empire was that heavily entrenched, and many still remembered not only democracy and the Republic, but days before Imperial subjugation. The Alliance should have tried to more significantly turn planets away from the Empire, encouraging open revolt, although perhaps they did so in order to maintain a stateless strategy. The Tarkin Doctrine, which among other things advocated for peace through power and subjugation, also helped to quiet discord. Next up, we have the Insurrectionists, or Innies, from the Halo universe. Innies opposed the UEG and the UNSC, the central governing bodies for humanity within the Milky Way galaxy, and, like many factions within sci-fi, believed generally that the UNSC overvalued Earth and the inner colony planets, while aggressively ruling over and exploiting the people and assets of the outer colonies. Sensing a buildup of frustration, and in order to avoid an uprising, the UNSC established a heavy military presence in the Outer Rim. Of course, this imperialism had the opposite effect, invigorating those hoping for freedom and leading to large-scale clashes across the galaxy. The main goal of the Innies was separation and independence, and I think that should be remembered. Many within the galaxy were initially sympathetic to the Innie cause, especially seeing the colonialistic nature of the UNSC. However, blunt and violent terrorist attacks, like the nuking of Haven, which killed millions, soured the Innies for many former sympathizers. What's worse, the faction was infiltrated by self-interested parties, including terrorists and mercenaries. As the violence moved towards the heart of the galaxy, the divide between inner and outer colonies became more severe. Nonetheless, the insurrectionists managed to establish several cells across the galaxy and coordinated resistances, even putting together fleets to fight the UNSC in space. At their height, Innies controlled several planets, had fully established manufacturing facilities, and manned military stations. I think it's unlikely, however, that the Innies could have ever successfully seeded, and in my mind, it was only a matter of time until the UNSC shut down the rebellion. I'll point to the increasing radicalization among rebels, the advent and introduction of Spartan 2 teams, and the increasing militarization of the UNSC to back up my point. The main insurrection was cut short by the Human Covenant War, as governing issues became less important than surviving as a species. The war itself was a huge blow to the rebel cause, as the Covenant glassed a majority of the outer colonies. Post-war, the UNSC remains dominant, though rebel groups do control several planets and have openly attacked the UNSC. I believe, however, that they will only manage to hold on to their territory for some time, as the UNSC is now very technically sophisticated and has also expanded the Spartan project. The introduction of Guardians to the galaxy will certainly mess things up, but I don't see the Innies ever truly finding victory. The main issue with their faction was the lack of organization and the resorting to terrorism, while also fighting a conventional war against the UNSC. I think a better strategy would have been the continued fostering of support within the galaxy for their position. That means protest, diplomacy, and hopefully eventually a degree of separation and self-governance. To be honest, many of the outer colonies would have still required resources from the inner colonies and Earth, so I think the insurrectionist's best idea would have been the establishment of some sort of resource sharing and just some diplomacy. If they really wanted to, at that point, they could try to militarize. Next up is the Lambda Resistance, the group which is, more than any on this list, fighting an uphill battle. The Lambda rebel against the interdimensional, extraordinarily powerful Combine, which has established what appears to be a small base on Earth. It's very difficult to actually rate the Resistance, as they are so hilariously outgunned by their oppressors. The Combine have completely dominated the planet and have technology which allowed them to defeat the militaries of the Earth in 7 hours. Since then, they've fully subjugated humanity, adding it to their multi-dimensional empire. The Resistance, on the other hand, is a somewhat limited rebellion, based mostly in a single area and without planet-spanning infrastructure or connections. So let's talk about what the Resistance does have and what they've accomplished. The Resistance is formed after the invasion and has managed to establish several key bases. One of the most important functions of the Resistance is the smuggling of civilians out of major cities, where the Combine have marshaled humanity. One of the Resistance's greatest assets is the creation of their underground railroad and the way they've integrated their members into the normal lives of humanity, despite the extreme oppression of the Combine. And unsurprisingly, the Resistance also has the support of much of humanity. The small, flexible, unrooted, but integrated nature of the Resistance means that the Combine has not been able to fully eliminate their influence, and they've recovered even from the loss of Ravenholm, one of their major bases. In fact, the sheer resiliency of the Resistance is likely their greatest asset. Technologically, the only major advantage they hold is transportation tech, which, through the help of the Vortigaunts, allows instant movement across Earth. The thing most impressive about the faction is that they openly fight the Combine, but still manage to survive counterattacks from the giant militarized faction. This is an overwhelming, perhaps unlimited force, and they've managed to accomplish several key things. They've destroyed the Nova Prospect facility, as well as City 17 and the Citadel, though those two were bittersweet, and also destroyed the Combine Super Portal, which cut the Combine Earth Regiment off from the rest of the Empire. This actually made the force on Earth manageable and the war generally more winnable. Sure, the odds are probably still overwhelming, but the Resistance has managed to accomplish a lot while facing an enemy with unlimited power. Honestly, there's not a whole lot to criticize here, so let's move on. And finally, we have Chaos Cults, which oppose the Imperium of Man and really everything nice and friendly in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Chaos Cultists are those who worship the imitation Imperium and the dark gods who reside there, seduced by freedom and power, which is otherwise unimaginable to those living under the terrible and overbearing Imperium. However, the power and freedom is seducing but imaginary. Chaos cultists are little more than pawns or literal possessed avatars of the dark gods of the chaos. The most dangerous nature of chaos cults is the degree to which they are embedded on even advanced worlds within the Imperium. The chaos gains a foothold within local populations, often within established institutions, then expands its influence. This will typically manifest in the summoning of demonic entities from chaos itself or the possession of cult members. The ultimate goal of chaos is to gain enough of a foothold on a planet to initiate a full-scale invasion. Chaos cultists thus represent an incredible danger from within. Even the most devout, from space marines to priests, can become corrupted without necessarily recognizing what's going on. Then that corruption can be hid and spread. Add to that the fact that the Imperium exists across the galaxy and is disgustingly large, and it's obvious why this threat is nearly impossible to counter. The nature of the Imperium and the seductive nature of chaos makes conversion easy. The chaos takes advantage of weakness and the weak. As long as temptation exists and the dark lords of chaos exist, cults will continue to manifest and add new members to their sects. The dipping into and worshipping of the dark gods in chaos is often clothed in the guise of hidden knowledge or power, or is meant to represent a way to escape pain. However, after one is fully integrated into a cult, the true nature is typically obvious and the practices become more and more dark. Chaos cults may serve individual demons or gods with independent goals. Some may only torture and kill on a small scale, while others attempt to destroy planets through chaos invasions. Often, cults have no connection to each other besides for their communication with the void. And it's for these reasons that it's basically impossible to destroy chaos cults on a large scale. However, despite their embedded nature in the Imperium of Man itself still stands, and although planets are lost, there's no indication that it will fall anytime soon. Alright, so let's get to ranking, and this video is getting long, so let's do it quickly. At number 4, I put the Insurrectionists from Halo. The Innies, despite having political and economic capital, waged a fairly poor revolution against the UNSC. They resorted to terrorism, turning populations against them, when in reality they probably should have went with a diplomatic solution. The Innies never really accomplished anything major besides for terroristic attacks, which is why they get the number 4 spot. At number 3 is the Chaos Cults from Warhammer. Chaos Cults are probably the most powerful of the rebellions on this list. They're almost impossible to destroy and tied to the dark gods of chaos. They also prey on temptation and pain, which will never be removed from the universe. However, in my opinion, the progress they've made against the Imperium of Man is relatively minor. However, because of their power, they could arguably be the number 1 spot, but because they're so different than the other factions, I'm going to keep them at number 3. Number 2 is the Rebel Alliance. The Alliance did a phenomenal job of attacking the weaknesses of the Empire, but I do wonder, in a galaxy as tightly held down as the Star Wars galaxy, how were they not able to get more allies on their side? Nonetheless, the Alliance was successful, did basically everything right, so they get the number 2 spot. The only reason I give number 1 to the Lambda Resistance is because I just can't ignore the success they've had against absolutely overwhelming odds. The Combine is a multi-dimensional empire. The Resistance is basically a ragtag group of people with an underground railroad. Nonetheless, they've managed major military victories while also surviving against Combine counterattacks. However, that is of course just my opinion. Which rebellion do you think is the best? Take a second and vote in the upper right hand corner. I really appreciate everyone for continually posting this suggestion. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to it. Let me know what you'd like to see next on the Discord and also down in the comments. Until next time guys, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.